Is it working? Marla asked, nervously tapping the device in her ear. Carlton sped up the car. Mine worked, he said brusquely. He glanced at her. She was knitting hands together, her knuckles going white. I mean, you can't really tell if it's working until what? Marla said. Well, until you're in danger and what? Marla seemed impatient. And you don't die. Carlton nodded reassuringly. So, how do we know if they're not working? Marla's voice had lost its energy. Well, if it doesn't work, you don't have to worry about it for long. He smiled. Right, Marla stopped fidgeting with the device and put her hand on her lap. It'll work. I rewired yours exactly like mine. I'm not usually in the thick of this stuff, Marla said. I come in afterwards with hugs and band-aids. If this were a movie, I'd be the lame babysitter, not the action hero. Here's a hint of bitterness in her voice, and Carlton looked at her surprised. Carlton, the road. He snapped his attention back to what he was doing and gave the wheel a controlled jerk. Marla, I have seen you in the thick of this stuff. Remember Freddy's? She gave a half-hearted nod. And don't dismiss the power of hugs and band-aids, he added, showing the car as the restaurant sign came into view. Circus Baby's Pizza blazed out over the night, casting half of the block in Gardner's red light. Can't miss this, Carlton remarked as they pulled into the parking lot. As soon as they were past the neon sign, it's brilliant. Witchy light faded with the background. The light was stark and bare. No one's here. Are you sure about this? Marla said urgently. No, but I know what I saw. Carlton drove slowly toward the entrance, pointing toward the clown girl mascot leaning over the entryway. And that is who attacked me. They parked close to the building. Carlton stopped to rummage around in the trunk for a minute, coming with two small flashlights. He flipped one and off experimentally, then handed it to Marla. Thanks, she whispered. They started around the side of the building, and Carlton swept his light along the wall, illuminating a row of tall rectangular windows. The window surfaces were tinted so dark they could not see in, and the frames were smooth black metal with nowhere to force an opening. Carlton shook his head and gestured toward the back of the building. Marla nodded, gripping her flashlight like a lifeline. There was more parking behind the building, and the back wall was lined with trash cans, two dumpsters sticking out on either side of the metal door. The only light came from a single flickering orange bulb, set above the plain door like a decoration. Looks like this is our way in, Carlton whispered. Look, Marla shone her light down into fresh prints in the mud, tracking it close to the wall and leaning up to the door. Jessica? Marla added to Carlton. Maybe. Marla grabbed the door handle and pulled hard, but it didn't budge. I don't think we'll find another way in, she whispered, and he grinned. You think I didn't came prepared? Carlton said, slipping a flat leather case from his pocket. He held it to her. Hold this, she said, and selected several thin strips of metal as she balanced the case for him. Are those lockpicks? Marla hissed. If there's one thing I've learned from watching my dad, it's that lockpicking can be used for good, Carlton said summoningly. He bent over the lock, trying to keep his head out of the way of the light, and slowly began to wriggle the back picks of into place. Oh, whatever, you can't pick a lock, can you? Is it even legal to own these? Marla asked. He looked back at her. She was holding the kit away from her body as if trying to dissociate herself from it. It's illegal as long as you don't pick any locks, she said. Now be quiet so I can pick this lock. Marla looked around nervously but didn't say anything. He turned his attention back to the door, listening for the lateral clicks of the tumblers falling into place as he carefully made his way through the mechanism. This is taking forever, Marla whined. I didn't say I was good at this, he said absently. Got it. He grinned triumphantly. The door opened with a creak, revealing a wide hallway with a gentle upward slope. The hill itself was dark, but a few yards ahead, they could see the dim glow of a for-ceiling lights. Martha pulled the door close behind them, cushioning it with her hand so it wouldn't slam. The light was coming from an open door on the left side of the hall. They waited, but no sound came from its direction, and they started to move, hugging the wall. As they got closer, Carlton sniffed the air. Shh, Marla hissed, and he jerked his head toward the door. Pizza, he whispered. Can you smell it? Marla nodded and patiently waved him forward. Of all the smells in this place, that's the one that catches your attention? The open door proved to be the kitchen, and they glanced around briefly. Then Carlton went into a large refrigerator and pulled it open. Carlton, forget the pizza, Marla said in dismay, but the refrigerator held only racks of ingredients. Carlton closed the door. You never knew who could have been hiding in there, he said quietly as they exited the kitchen. At the end of the hall was a swinging double door with small windows just at Carlton's eye height, and he surveyed what he could see of the next room, then pushed the door open. Marla gasped. Creepy, Carlton said midly. The dining room in front of them was lit in the same dim, fluorescent light, giving the brand new place an all dullness. There were tables and chairs at the center, and arcade games and play areas along all the walls, but their eyes were drawn immediately to the small stage at the back corner. Its purple curtain was pulled open and was empty except for a bright yellow rope strung across the front and a sign with a picture of a clock on it. Next show, it read in neat handwritten letters, but the clock had no hands. Marla shivered and Carlton nudged her. It's not the same, he whispered. It's exactly the same, she said. Carlton looked around at the rest of the room, his eyes lightning in a ball pit that stuck out from the front wall of a half circle, around a red plastic awning arching over it, trimmed with white. Look at the monkey bars, she pointed. Across the room, three small children steadily climbed the tangled structure of red and yellow bars. Carlton, startled, looked at Marla with surprise, then ran to them. Are you okay? Where are your parents? He asked breathlessly. Then his mouth went dry. The children were not human or alive. Their animatronic faces were painted like clowns, their features absurdly exaggerated. One had a round red nose that covered half of his face, and a white wig of synthetic curls. Another had a mole smile on his face and a painted red grimace. The third, a red-cheeked, smiling clown with a rainbow-colored wig, looked almost cute except for the gigantic spring that replaced the middle of its torso, blowing up and down each time as it moved. All of them had black eyes, with no iris or pupil, and they did not appear to see Carlton. He waved his hands, but they did not turn their heads, just kept grasping the bars on their pudgy hands and pulling themselves along the structure with uncanny precision. All of them emitted a loud roaring sound as if they were wind-up toys that had been seen loose to climb. The child with the spring suddenly flung its top half over the top of the bars. The spring extended into a long, wavy wire, then it grabbed the bar and its feet shot into the air mightily and came snapping back into place on the other side. My mistake, you're not the kids we're looking for. Carry on, Carlton whispered shakily as the creatures continued, waving over and under, back and forth through the structure. They don't see us, Marla whispered, and it took them a moment to register her voice. What? He said, his eyes still on the cloud children. They don't see us, she repeated. These little things are working. She tapped her ear. Right, good, Carlton said, pulling himself away from the scene. Marla was smiling with relief. We still have to be careful, though, he warned. I can't guarantee it works on everything, and it definitely won't work on people. Marla shivered, then nodded quickly. There's a room past the stage, she said. Looks like an arcade. Carlton said grimly. Marla slowed by the stage, her hand drifting toward the current as if she might try to look behind it. No, Carlton grabbed Marla's hand. The last thing we want to do is call any attention to ourselves. Marla nodded in agreement. The arcade smelled overpoweringly of new plastic, the games gleaming and scarcely placed. There were a dozen or so freestanding arcade cabinets and two pinball machines, one predictably, by now, clown-themed, and the other painted with cartoonish snake charmers. Carlton gave them a wide berth. Marla cut his sleeve and gestured to a closed door in the wall on their left, an exit sign glowing red above it, and he nodded. They headed for it, creeping past a test your strength game, governed by an adult-sized clown with a face made of jagged metal plates, who nodded continuously, its painted smile maniacally. As they passed, Carlton watched it carefully, but its eyes did not seem to track their movement. When they reached the door, Carlton took a deep breath. Then it gently pushed on the bar. It gave way immediately, and Marla sighed with relief. Carlton pushed the door open, holding it out for her, then froze as the unmistakable clack of servos broke the silence behind them. They both spun around. Carlton braced his arm in front of Marla's chest protectively, his heart racing, but nothing was moving. He scanned the room, then saw it. The clown standing over the game was staring at them, his head cocked to the side. Colton glanced at Marla, and she nodded immediately, and she had too seen it. Slowly, she backed through the door, and Colton watched the animatronic, but it showed no further signs of movement. Then Marla went safely through the door. Colton waved his arms, hoping desperately that it would not see him. The clown remained motionless, having apparently returned to stasis. Colton slipped out of the room and closed the door carefully behind him. He returned and almost fell over Marla, who was backed up almost to the wall. "Watch it," he whispered good-naturedly, catching her shoulder for balance. Then he looked up and swayed to his feet, disoriented by a dozen distorted, menacing figures. He took a breath, and the room fell into place. Mirrors. Before them was an array of funhouse mirrors, each one distorting the images it reflected. Colton's eyes flitted from one to the next. One showed him and Marla was as tall as the ceiling, and the next they were blown up like balloons, crowding each other out of the frame. And the next their bodies looked normal, but their heads shrank to stalks on each wide. "Okay then," he whispered. "How do we get out of here?" As if in answer to his question, two mirrors slowly began to swivel, turning toward each other until they made a narrow door in the wall of small closed panels. Beyond the opening lay more mirrors, but Carlton could not tell how many were there or which were directed. As one mirror caught another, doubling the reflections until it was impossible to see what was real and what was not. Marla stepped through the gap and beckoned. There was a gleam in her eye, but Carlton couldn't tell if it was an excitement or the strange dim light. He followed her, and as soon as he was through the gap, the panels began to pivot again, closing them inside. Carlton glanced around, growing nervous now that their exit had been blocked off. They seemed to be in a narrow corridor that branched off into two directions. The walls made of more floor-to-ceiling mirror panels. "It's a maze," Marla whispered, and gave him a smile when she saw the look on his face. "Don't worry," she added. "I'm good at mazes." "You're good at mazes?" Carlton said with irritation. "What is supposed to be mean? I'm good at mazes." "What's wrong with saying that? I've always been good with mazes." Marla shook her head. "What, like the hay mazes? When we were 5? Is that what you were talking about? I got through it before anyone else did. He climbed over the top of the blades. You're not supposed to do that." "Oh, you're right." Marla's face flushed. "I'm not good at mazes. We will get through this together." Carlton took her hand long enough to stop her from having a panic attack, then released it. She looked in both directions, thoughtful, then pointed decisively. Let's try that way," she said. They started down the path as she had chosen, and Carlton followed, keeping his eyes on her feet in front of him. After only a few steps, he heard her sharp intake of breath and snapped his neck up. They were at a dead end. "Dead end already?" he said, surprised. "No, the panel closed," she hissed. "This way, hey maze," Carlton said with a hint of amusement. "Back this way." They started back the way they came, and this time Carlton saw the panels move. As they moved back to the spot where they had come in, a panel swung toward them, cutting off their path. A second later, another panel swung away, opening a new corridor. Marla hesitated, and Carlton stepped up beside her. "No choice. Let's go," he said. She nodded, and they walked deeper into the maze. As if they had crossed the new threshold, the panel swung shut. They looked around for the new opening, but there was none. They were enclosed on all sides by mirrors. Carlton walked the small perimeter quickly, beginning to panic. "Carlton, just wait. Another one will open," Marla whispered. "I know you ain't here." An unfamiliar face rang out. It seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. echoing like it was bouncing from panel to panel. The sound was mechanical, glitching out midward. They exchanged a glance. Marla's face was pale with fear. There, Carlton pointed. A panel had opened while they were distracted. He rushed for it and walked into a mirror, smacking his head on the glass. Ow. It's there, Marla hissed, pointing to the opposite side of the enclosure. The panel began to swing shut, closing the room off again. I'll find you. The glitching voice had a strange, unsteady tone. Carlton! Marlowe stood into the gap, holding out a hand, and he ran for her. Both of them making it through just as the panel rotated back into its position. What are you going to do? Stand there and let it crush you? Carlton hissed. I hadn't considered we would get caught between the panels. This place is just asking for a lawsuit. Marla straightened herself. It's been a lovely evening, but I think I'd like you to take me home now. She said calmly. Take you home? Take me home, Carlton said before pausing to listen. I know just where you are. They were in a hallway again, this time with two corners to choose from. They exchanged a grim look and turned on the left, slowly moving. Carlton kept his eyes on Marla's. Ahead of him, trying not to look at the walls on either side, were ranks of their duplicates marched silently beside him, misshapen and warped into the mirrors, then occasionally appearing normal. When they reached the corner, something flashed in the corner of his eye, a reflection of giant eyes, staring at them. Carlton grabbed Marla's shoulder. Over there, she shuddered. I saw it too. Come on, go, go, go. Marla whispered. Just follow me. Stay calm. Remember, nothing can see us. I'm getting closer, the mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. It's just a recording, Carlton whispered. It's coming from everywhere. I don't think there's anything actually in here with us. Marla nodded, looking unconvinced. A few steps ahead of them, panels began to pivot again, closing off their path. Carlton glanced behind them. The other end of the hall had closed too. Marla inched closer to him. I see you. Shut up, Carlton whispered. He tried to slow his breathing so it made no sound, imagining the air go in and out, filling his lungs without touching the sides. The panel to the right began to swing open slowly and they backed out of its way. Marla gasped and Carlton grabbed her arm. Seeing that there was something behind the slowly opening mirror, though he couldn't make out what. They backed up further, taking small, cautious steps. Carlton reached the mirror panels for an exit but only saw his own face, bulging and deformed. There you are. The panel opened, revealing a kaleidoscope of purple, white, and silver, glancing off every mirror disjointingly. Carlton blinked, trying to make sense of the reflections. Then a figure at the center stepped into the makeshift room. He was a bear, built like Freddy Fazbear, and yet entirely unlike him. His metal body was gleaming white, accented with vibrant purple. He held a microphone in his hand, the top sparkling like a disco ball, and on his chest at the center of a purple metal short front was a small round speaker, only a few feet from them. The new Freddy turned his massive head from side to side, his eyes passing over them. Carlton glanced at Marla, who tapped her ear and nodded. He put his finger in his lips. Freddy took 2 steps forward and they stepped back, pressed against the wall. Freddy looked from side to side. I know just where you are. The sound was ear-splitting, rattling Carlton's teeth, but Freddy's mouth did not move. The voice was projected from the speaker on his chest. Carlton held his breath as the bear's eyes passed over him, reminding him that he was masked, but the bear's eyes hesitated on him before moving away. Carlton could feel the sweat beating in his forehead. The wall behind them repositioned, and Carlton shifted his weight just in time not to fall. Carlton moving just behind him. The panel swung open slowly and they edged away as Freddy walked slowly in their direction, heading for the new exit where they were now standing. Marla touched Carlton's arm, guiding him on the side just as Freddy lumbered past them, his shiny surface almost brushing against Carlton's nose. I'm getting closer, Freddy stuttering maniacally as he disappeared around a corner. The panel began to swing shut and Marla pointed urgently to the door Freddy had come in. They raced for it, making it through just before the mirrors closed.